Can you power an induction cooktop or small space heater using an actual portable power station? Better yet, should you? Well, today let's find out. Hello everyone, my name is Dan, welcome to Freely Roaming. When we're talking about portable power stations, I often focused on the word portable in that name. There's some massive power stations that claim to be portable, like the Goal Zero Yeti 3000X that weighs a whopping 70 pounds. Something like that, even though technically portable, it would not be fun to lug around. But big power stations like that is generally what you need if you want to run heavy resistive loads like a hairdryer or a stovetop, electric stovetop, or possibly a small space heater. And that's because lithium batteries are nowhere near as energy dense as your traditional fossil fuels like gasoline, butane, or propane. By comparison, propane has a whopping 13,900 watt hours per kilo, while lithium iron phosphate tops out at about 160. That's over 8,600% higher in specific energy. That's not even talking about the inefficiencies of converting stored electrical energy into usable heat. These are the reasons why I still recommend people who are traveling full-time to not use electricity for heat or cooking and still use fossil fuels. But I'm hopeful that one day soon we're going to have better alternatives to be able to do that. That's what I want to show you today, an actual portable power station that can run an induction cooktop and even a small space heater in a practical amount of time that you can use maybe on an overnight trip. And doing that with a unit that is actually portable. It is small enough that you can actually carry it around while powerful enough that you can maybe cook a meal and run the heater for maybe a half an hour before you go to bed. This unit right here is the BougeRV model SYZ-G1000 portable power station. It weighs in at only 30 pounds and has an inverter that can output 1200 watts of pure sine wave from its built-in 1100 watt hour battery. Even though it's not using lithium iron phosphate cells, it is using an aluminum cased prismatic lithium ion cells rather than the more common lithium ion cells that are cylindrical. By looking at the spec sheet, that says it has a 50 amp hour battery inside. So by doing some simple math, and you can tell they're using a 6S connection with 3.65 volt cells with a nominal output of 22 volts. It's a pretty good looking power station, honestly. It's not orange, but it does have some accents of yellow, which is kind of their brand. It's by a company called BougeRV. They've been in the market for a couple of years now, and they make products like solar panels. They sell things like compressor refrigerators, and also nowadays they sell power stations. It comes with a charging brick that's capable of charging 200 watts. It's a 25.5 volt power supply at 8 amps. And also comes with a car adapter, so you can charge this while you drive as well. The car adapter, however, is going to charge at about half that rate. So let's look inside the owner's manual to get some specs for you guys. One of the interesting things that I found out is that they do have a limited warranty for their power station. However, it is not transferable. And also on top of that, it is only offered to customers who buy either directly from their website or from the Amazon website. And in order for you to qualify for their warranty, when you buy from Amazon, you have to send in a screenshot of your receipt page or your purchase page before they will register you for the warranty. So basically that just means that it is not transferable. If you buy it, only the original buyer qualifies for the 1-year warranty. So it weighs in at 30 pounds. The dimensions are 16 by 12 by 14, 1100 watt hour capacity, 50 amp hours, 1200 watt pure sine wave inverter. It has two USB-As outputting 2.4 amps, which is 12 watts each. It has a USB-A quick charge 3.0 up to 18 watts. Also has a USB-C power delivery up to 60 watts. And this is a bidirectional one, which I'm a big fan of. It also has a 12 volt outlets. Over here we have a lighter socket that's 10 amps max, which gives you 120 watts of output, and also two DC 5521 barrel plug adapters up here that gives you some other DC outputs. And over here you have 3 AC sockets. It does have pass-through charging, which for me is a really important feature for power stations like this. On the top you just have these two grab handle, which I find pretty handy. Nothing else on top. I wish this was a wireless charging pad. Again, this is not. On the side, we have ventilation. One side has a fan. The other side just ventilates, so you can have airflow coming from one side going into the other. In the back, I know what you're expecting, but it's not there. There's no flashlight. Flashlights on power stations like this are really not that practical, but will you miss it if it's not there? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. So, let's talk about the features a bit. You can tell BougeRV made a conscious choice to use lithium-ion cells rather than lithium iron phosphate cells. So they're able to pack a little bit more energy into a compact size. This particular unit uses nickel manganese cobalt chemistry. Nickel manganese cobalt compared to lithium iron phosphate is much lighter, so you can have more energy density in a smaller package. And because it is using aluminum case prismatic lithium ion cells versus the cylindrical cells, they're claiming that it can actually have 1,500 cycles before the capacity goes down to 80%. Now that's more than what most people would expect, because nickel manganese cobalt chemistry is usually rated for between 600 to 800 cycles. So time will tell if the 1,500 cycles is what people will actually get. And because they've chosen consciously to use a 6S setup in their batteries, which means that when they're converting their 22 volts to a usable 12 volt output in their DC out, it is going to be much more efficient. In power stations, like I said this before, the 1100 watt hour battery rating, you're not going to get it all out. It is never the case that the 1200 watts of battery capacity will be all usable in a power station. My general rule of thumb is that it should get at least 80% of that capacity. I suspect partially due to their 6S battery configuration, we were able to pull a lot of power out of this, well beyond the 80% threshold. Besides the typical capacity test, we also did some load tests to show how this battery can actually be used in resistive loads like an electric cooktop and a portable space heater. So with that said, let's get into showing you guys some of those tests. Okay, so for the BougeRV power station, we're going to test its AC output by using this Induction cooktop. So we plug in the Induction cooktop and then we see how many watts I can pull with each of these settings, and to see how the inverter can sustain. So we'll start with low. That should only draw, well, actually drawing 600 and, nope, it's going down. Yep, 630 watts. It just went down as probably initial startup. So it's kind of this oscillating thing. It senses the temperature. Once it reaches the temperature, it drops down. But it'll peak at 628. Over here on the meter here is 667. So it handles low pretty well. So let's go to medium low. So medium low will sustain at 620, presumably until it hits that temperature, and it will oscillate off and on. So it can handle medium low pretty good. Now let's do medium. That's 275 Fahrenheit. That goes up to 800 watts. 800 watts on the meter, 850 watts on the battery bank itself, the monitor. It's a 1200 watt rated inverter, so I'm sure this is fine. So we'll go up to medium high. Medium high will start pushing it up to its limit. Right now it's 1000 watts on the power meter, 1050 or so on the LCD. Should be able to handle that. That's below the maximum rating. Now let's go to high. This will probably push it to 1200 watts. 425 Fahrenheit. It is 1175 on the power meter. It's 1237 on the LCD. So that's officially over its rated limit if you go by this. and showing that the fan has kicked on. I should be able to sustain this for at least a few minutes. In theory, if it's rated for 1200 watts, that should be 100% duty cycle at 1200 watts. Here we go, max. And here we go, 1300 watts. Oh, it's handling max decently. I'm getting some smoke from my cast iron. Minute and 15 seconds. Still going strong. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's 2 minutes. So handle this at 2 minutes, still going. Reset this. And then high. Start a clock. And let's see how many kilowatt hours it'll take. Starting at 89%. And we'll just wait for this to boil. Okay, just so we know, when it's drawing 1222, the string is outputting 1283, 75, so about 1280. 1222, 1275. So there's about 53 watts of loss here through the inverter. Alright, just about 3.5 minutes here. We're on about 1266 watts of output. We've lost 8% capacity, but it is still going. It is sustaining just slightly above its rated output, so that's pretty good. Going on 4 minutes. Starting to hear some sounds in the kettle. Water's going to boil pretty soon. 100 watt hours consumed at 5 minutes. And we're starting to see some steam coming out. I say in the next minute we're going to get to a boil. Here we go, we got a boil. And stop. 549. And we used 117 watt hours. It went from 89% down to 76%. So I'm about halfway through this DC capacity test. It's at 56%, but up here the meter is showing that it's drawn 566 watt hours. And this is supposed to be a 1100 watt hour battery bank, I believe. So yeah, it's looking good. If this meter is correct, then it's gonna actually do better than the rated capacity, but we'll see. Usually it doesn't happen, especially this looks like it's a regulated output, 12.4 volts. It's been running constantly at 12.4 volts this entire test so far. So that regulated DC output usually comes at a cost of less capacity, but this one may prove us wrong just yet. We'll see. It's been 4.5 hours, so it's going to be another 4 to 5 hours before this is done, and we'll be back when that happens. About 2/3 of the way. This is reading 35%, and we are at 815 watt hours now, so it is doing really good. Still on track to outperform the rated capacity, so we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it doesn't cut out early. But so far it's already got more than 70% of the capacity, which is a lot of power stations would have just shut off around this range. It's between 70 and 80%, so we're looking good, especially direct DC out anyways. It is a regulated output, as you can see, still 12.4 volts regulated coming out of this 12 volt socket. Now we're doing an AC discharge test using this power meter. I'm pulling 764 watts, which is about 0.75 C for this 0.8 C roughly for this 1100 watt hour battery bank. I'm using this little space heater. There's a low and high setting. The low setting is 750 watts. The high setting is 1500 watts. And this being a 1200 watt AC inverter is able to power it just fine. So we will see how much capacity we get out of the inverter with this test. Initially, I was going to, instead of just use up this power by converting it to heat with this heater, I was going to use my battery charger over there to charge one of the other batteries with this as my method of discharging, so I can preserve that, or at least some of that power. But this inverter doesn't like that charger. So I was not able to use this without having the inverter trip due to short circuit. So not exactly sure what's going on with that, but it seems to work just fine with the induction stove and now with this heater. And we'll see how long it runs and how much power it goes. This little power meter has the ability to track the amount of watt hours as well as the amount of time that it runs. So we'll see how long you can run a little heater like this for, which might be helpful for somebody who wants to do some car camping. All right, so we're about 57 minutes in. It's down to 24%, and it's putting out pretty good heat at this low setting even. So for a small vehicle, it might be good, but just so you know that it takes a lot of power. This is a 1100 watt hour battery bank. As you can see, we're hitting close to 700 watt hours now. You're only going to be able to run this for about an hour and 20 minutes to drain the entire battery bank down to run this heater at low mode. And it's going to take a good 5 to 6 hours to charge back up. People ask me a lot about electric space heaters. In a pinch, it'll work, but just so you know, it's not sustainable for everyday use, because it's going to take you pretty much most of the day, the next day, if you're charging by solar especially, to get this charged back up, and you're only going to be able to use it for a little over an hour. But for this capacity test, it's working really well. And for this inverter to be drawing almost an hour, 750 watts constant, it's pretty good. 1%. This is going to die any minute now. We're at 1%, still drawing full load, and we've discharged 909 kilo or watt hours, 910 watt hours so far. So this is actually a pretty good output. In fact, I think it might even be better than the DC discharge test. We'll see. So on a full charge, you can expect about an hour and 20 minutes worth of heat at the low setting for this heater. This is the Black & Decker heater. 921 watt hours, 951, still going. 952, still going. If it gets to 990, that means it would have output at 90% of its rated capacity through its AC inverter. I don't think it's going to get there. So close to hitting 990. Let's see if it does. These lithium batteries, at the top end and at the low end, you see a steep drop in the voltage. So it might be pulling the same number of amps to run this, but it is pulling them at a lower voltage. Oh, there it goes. 0%. I don't think we got to 980, but let's plug in a charger and see if we can get this thing back alive to see where we ended up at. One hour and 21 minutes. Oh, 983 watt hours. That's pretty good. That is really good, in fact. I'm impressed. So this BougeRV comes with this 200 watt AC charger, and it actually outputs 25.5 DC volts at 8 amps, which gives you 204 watts. So it goes into this DC 5521 port right here, which is also where you can put in your any DC power source. This one and this one basically is interchangeable. There's an Anderson power pull plug, and there's this barrel plug. So you can put in DC here, which will charge it at about 200 watts. And a neat little trick that this thing does is there's also bi-directional USB-C power delivery port right here, 60 watts. So if you plug this in while you're charging, with power delivery coming out of the wall or any source really, as you can see, you can actually boost that charging wattage from the 200 that comes into the DC port with another 60. So both of these ports can charge together, combining its input, and charge this thing at 260 plus watts, which is pretty cool. So as you can tell, this BougeRV power station performed great. The only downside is that the AC inverter didn't like my lithium iron phosphate battery charger for whatever reason. But it did run everything else that I plugged in. Using a unit like this for car camping, you can easily boil a liter of water in about 6 minutes, and it uses only about 13% of the total capacity. From a full charge, you can also run a space heater for a little bit more than an hour, as you guys saw in the tests. That might be just enough for an overnight trip to your local state park, but certainly after that, your battery bank will be depleted by the morning. So the answer to my question that I posed at the top of this video is yes, you can certainly use an actual portable power station that you can carry to go for an overnight trip somewhere. But it's probably not practical because you don't want to have to charge this up every day just to be able to boil some water and run the heat for a little bit. It is still best for these types of power stations to be used for things like charging phones, computers, drone batteries, and stuff like that. However, I do have a video where I show you how you can cheaply expand the capacity of practically any power station by just combining it with a raw lithium iron phosphate battery. I'll put that link right here if you guys haven't seen it. Overall, I'm very impressed with how the BougeRV power station did in the capacity test. I attribute most of that to the clever 6S configuration and the type of batteries that they're using in this unit. It gives you a good balance of reasonably high cycle life and also good energy density. I still personally prefer lithium iron phosphate batteries. However, if somebody's short on space and just want to squeeze out a little bit more power in the same amount of form factor, I can see this one working better for them. I also really like this bi-directional USB-C power delivery port. And the fact that you can boost the charging speed by using it along with a normal charger is a pretty neat trick. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. I'll have links below to the BougeRV website and also on discounts that they're having for Black Friday if you guys are looking to buy one of these. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them below. I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. Hope you guys are having a good week. I'll see you guys in the next video.